John Bannon. We're continuing the journey into this old school John Bannon stuff. I'm having so much fun with it. Like I said, I'm loving it. It's reminding me of another time and loving all these tricks, man. So good.
It was another time. It was another place. I am feeling an unabashed geekness when you and I get together in the middle of the afternoon and we say, let's do this vintage John Bannon. I feel like we're sort of definitely demonstrating that we are not young guys.
It's true. It's true. But I felt so young when I was in all that when it came out. So, that's it. In my mind, I am a child.
And it feels good.
It feels real
So
good.
let's fire up this. Yeah, let's fire up this very Robert Battle. It's interesting with Robert Battle there. Last night we had a little theme, Battle of the Visual Stunners. And I feel like that would almost be like a good name for Robert Battle's own afternoon show. I'm going to send to corporate my own request that we somehow get Robert Battle as the host of a new member event, a regular, semi-regular, at least member event.
With a name like that, how could he not?
With the name like Battle, something has to happen. You know what I mean? All right.
All right, let's do this.
Bannon.
John Bannon.
We're going to start off with.
Casual.
Actually, I'm glad it's you. Because last night, I actually had a dream, and you were in it. It was a card trick dream. And what I did was I showed you the edges of someone who looked just like you. Could have been your twin sister. I showed you the edges of each and every card. I riffled down the side of the deck like this, and I just asked you to say stop.
Stop.
Right there?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the 2 of spades.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gave you a pen and had you put your initials on the 2, right on that corner. It's funny, last night, in my dream, you actually chose the 2 of spades as well. It's weird. You're not buying any of this, are you? It's funny, when I woke up this morning, underneath my pillow, I found this card. Now, it's a different color card, but the funny thing is, Becky, is that it, too, is a 2 of spades. It's remarkable, don't you think? The problem is that the card in my dream was blue, right? And it doesn't have your initials on it. So what we're going to try to do is make my dream come true by pulling your initials right off of your card, and right onto my card.
Oh my God.
And so now my dream came true.
What a solid trick. He calls that Tattoo You.
Tattoo You. Yeah. He puts those rock and roll names in there. They're scattered throughout the John Bannon lineage. I love it. Because it, brings 2 of my favorite things together.
Now, members, you should be aware that Alex taught this trick in an event you can find in the back room. I believe it was in Our Favorite Tricks.
This was actually part of the launch when we did the Kickstarter and the new cards came out. This was part of the out of the box experience. So for those of you that were part of the out of the box experience, that's there for you right now if you want it.
Because it's the kind of trick, right? It's this great trick, but it's the kind of trick that you sort of have to have a blue card with you, and you'd have to sort of know that in advance if you're ever going to do the trick. And so since that rarely sort of just happens for people, it rarely happens that you would think to do the trick. And so you wisely realized that this is like a heavenly trick to do if only you had that guaranteed. And of course, when you get a CC Club deck, you're all sort of set to go from scratch.
It's true. And it was one of the first things I thought of when we got when the new deck came. I was like, well, it looks like Tattoo You's got to be back in my universe. And I took it at that point, and I love the trick. I think it's really a stunner, and I think that clips for itself.
I think it's unfortunate. I just feel like, for me, maybe it's my aged eyes, but it's almost a little hard to see the effect in that video. I feel like when you got to do it for us, it was very, very clear. Could everyone see who's watching live? Put a 1 in chat if you could really see that incredible visual moment where he pulls. Was it clear? Did it read to you? That's good. And I'm particularly interested. Yeah. See, there's Robert Battle.
There it goes. Right.
Yeah. So let's do another one.
Let's do another one. Yeah, let's do this.
We're running our tech remotely today, so it's a little
Well,
hard.
it's not really a trick, it's a story. Well, a lot of card tricks are like stories. This one,
I think we got to recue that again. So we're trying a new remote tech process today. It makes it a little harder for us to just stop and break in and, you know, vamp in the middle of a trick. So we're going to take that as it comes. But New Jack City,
well, a lot of card tricks.
a big Nino
Well, it's
Brown.
not really a trick, it's a story. Well, a lot of card tricks are like stories. This one is about cops and robbers, life in the big city. In fact, in this story, the 4 jacks will play the role of the police officers. And the police are headquartered somewhere near the center of the deck where they can keep their eyes out for criminals. Of course, we need to have a couple criminals. So, Becky, what I would like you to do is select one, and whatever card you take, that will be a criminal. And Mike, I would like you to take one. Show it to the folks at home.
Yeah.
Now, like most cities, there's an uptown and a downtown. So, Becky, would you replace your card downtown?
Okay.
Okay, so your card will be the downtown criminal. And Mike, your card will be the uptown criminal. Okay, so we have 2 criminals at large, an uptown criminal and a downtown criminal.
And
And
brewing
it's the
class war.
jacks, as the police of the deck, it's their job to capture the criminals.
Okay.
Now, in order to do that, they're going to have to split up as we place them in there. 2 are going to have to go downtown. 2 are going to have to go uptown. Now, who was our downtown criminal?
This is Dragnet.
It's his handling of Dragnet, no doubt.
9 of clubs.
7 of
7 of
spades.
spades.
Seven of
That
spades.
was it.
And who was our uptown criminal?
10 of spades.
And they got them both.
Well, friends, you can really tell the John Bannon did spend that time with Jack Berman in the DC in his early days, because the double sandwich with that Charlier and throwing that packet like that is definitely a Jack Berman joint. Seems like John's very, very smart, and he's got an interesting switch out there where he shows those. This feels like Cardman Corner, doesn't it?
It sort of is, though.
But it is, because if you take a look at the way John Bannon does it, you know, he's got this, he's got a dry style, and it was called Tattoo You, Mike Stanley, the first trick. He's got a dry style. He's got very interesting notions that you could play with if you wanted to, but he's choosing to play it very dry. And, you know, it basically leaves us talking about card guy stuff.
Right. Right.
You know, so he's got this moment where he takes those 4 cards and he talks about how they can go look for criminals, and he uses that to do the switch out. And then he's got this interesting control method where he does 2 1-card controls, and then he sandwiches them both together. And of course, in so doing, he's managed to eliminate the need to teach Jack's unpublished controls, and he still gets that great double sandwich moment. You know what I mean?
It's pretty good.
Wonderful, wonderful thing. The
Pretty
double
good. I love the double sandwich idea. That to me, I didn't know who Jack Berman was when I was a kid. I just saw a sandwich trick and went, wait a second. That sort of turns the whole sandwich notion on its ear. How is that possible? It's a good one, because it's so clean at the moment that it needs to be clean, right? You're literally throwing those things in, giving it the cut, and then spread, and there they are. It's good.
And
Good,
it's
strong
got,
magic.
it's got this look. There's a cool thing that happens when a card jumps in between 2 mates. That's what we might call a sandwich. But it's a different thing with the double sandwich, because you see the packet of 4 cards, you throw them into the deck, and then you spread the cards, and it really looks like the 2 sets of 2 mates jump to do different ends of the deck, and it's got a whole different vibe. So, like all the most of the Jack Berman tricks, I would say half of those Jack Berman tricks, it's incredibly direct and short and clear, just like Robert said. But it also is one of those sandwich tricks that can follow other sandwich tricks, because, you know, we all have a few different sandwich tricks. Those would be good revelations, nice card tricks, and one wants to know how one can sort of bring it full circle, sort of bring it to a crescendo, turn it into a whole little routine, you know. And I would say Dragnet, or this particular handling, which is probably even easier.
Yeah.
What's it call it? New Jack City?
New Jack City.
And that's the credit, of course, New Jack City. It's a Berman reference is right there in the title. It's the kind of routine that you can follow your sandwich tricks with.
Well, like I said, I'd seen sandwich and done sandwich tricks, and I saw this and I knew this was new. And I knew things about card tricks. So I imagine for laymen, it's a perfect addition to a sandwich thing that you're doing, like you're saying. That's a way to elevate the whole thing and maybe have a finish to the sandwich trick if you're not doing it as a quick one-off. Love it. It's really startling. And like you said,
also totally
visual aspect. It's like the card split, and it's like a visual trick, even though it's not really a visual trick, right? It's so good.
If you think about it, normally the impression of a sandwich trick is that the selection, especially with one of these out jog sandwich tricks, the impression is that the selection jumps into where those two mates are. If they're on top of the deck, it appears between them. If they're in the middle of the deck,
But it's always
lots
sort
of
of
sandwich
implied.
tricks.
It's always sort of implied. You close everything and then it's there. And I guess it's the same thing with this, but the fact that they're splitting and going to two different parts of the deck, that's the two pairs of jacks. There's something about that makes it like a really visual trick that in a way that a regular sandwich trick doesn't,
There's just this moment where when you've got your 4 cards, and I'm just sort of showing how that moment sort of looks, where you do that and they jump across like so. And so it's unique, right? And that sort of Jack's key to it is not just this double sandwich idea, which I'm sure had been done before, but it was that use of the Charlier cut to create that look like they blast 2 and 2 in opposite directions. What John has done, in addition to eliminating a sleight of Jack's, which was not problematic really, but what John has done is really by doing that interesting control sequence, he's more clearly highlighted that the selections are here and here. So what Jack had was this part worked out where the 4 cards jump like this, right? John added and strengthened the idea that the 2 selections were at the North and South poles, so that Jack's moment where the Jacks go really, there's a sense of continuity to it, like they actually not just split, but they actually went to the places where you felt like you had a very clear understanding of where those cards were. Last night we talked about card to wallet and how either it or card in impossible location when you open the box, is a perfect example of the card in impossible location, where at this moment when everyone wants to watch very clearly, it would be awesome if you could reach forward and let someone go. But there's that whole universe of caps based methods, I think, where you go, hey, hold out your hand at that moment, which is proof, of course, that you don't actually need to let people focus in an unbroken line on that moment. But the point is, it's nice to know whether the method allows you to focus that attention. And when you know how much clarity is built into the trick, you know where you get to focus and shine the light. And so in this case, right, Bannon is allowing you to really focus and highlight the positions of those selections, so that there's a lot more sense of reality when the Jacks leap to different parts of the deck to go trap them. What a lovely thing. Honestly, as long as we're having Cardman Corner, friends, pens that don't write, if you want to be grumpy old card guys, I have to say, for 20 years, I've been a grumpy old guy about excessive use of the convincing control. Generally speaking, it's not that desirable to me to have people say touch a card. When we talked about this in the Scotty York trick, you say touch a card to people, and then the next line you always have from the magician is, no, I did just touch the card, because people don't know what that means. They don't really want to do a selection this way. This is really an example of a structure that helps us with card tricks, and so we sort of make our audiences endure it. What's interesting about this is that there's a real good reason for it. The justification for having the cards sticking out like that is important. It helps. It helps.
And it helps to make that illusion convincing when they split, because you're sort of marking where those jacks are going to show up by having those cards out jogged. It's really clever in a lot of ways. It's really clever. And like you're talking about that convincing control, usually everything's within that. He's having them take them out of the deck, then puts them back and does the convincing control method, which is sort of a little bit of smoke because he's in motion when it's happening. And it's Lovely. There's a lot to learn from
And
that.
it fixes it.
Yeah, it sure
And
does.
it fixes it because it's not a problem to have a selection out jogged, right? It's a problem to have a weird forced selection process.
Right.
So the idea of just having two cards taken out, like if you were going to just have two selections taken out, you were going to say, now look, I want to make everyone apparent that we've got one of your cards is way down near the bottom, one of your cards is way up near the top. If that's what you're trying to articulate, that has not got the same problem as a convincing control, right?
That's right.
So it's context. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit, it's like I do that slow motion sandwich trick, which, Vernon always hated of Larry Jennings.
Yeah.
He always thought it was too complex a trick, right? Well, whether that's true or not, it certainly is too complex to not do clearly. And there's no doubt, and often I'll do it without the out jog, but with something like that to market. But there's no doubt that when the audience feels like they know the card is there, the illusion that the jokers are moving to trap it, it's an important part of the illusion. So I think that, that's a wonderful element of this that I think Bannon has really, I got to say, I don't know if the word improvement is right, but I know it's definitely a welcome addition to the trick. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, let's move on to the next one here. Let's check out this next clip from Bannon and have fun with this one.
Are those cards shuffled?
Well enough.
Good. That's people at home, they trust you. They don't trust Mike. And they certainly don't trust me, but you they trust. In fact, that's why you're here. Now, Becky, I'm going to give you
dry.
Like hold up your hand like this. Place
like
it
a martini.
Like that.
Dry.
That's perfect. I'm going to give you some cards to hold. First one will be my card, and just hold on to it for now. With your free hand, take a card for your own self. We'll give one to Rich, and Mike, you take one. In fact, Mike, what I'd like you to do is write your name on the face of your card. While he's doing that, Becky, would you place your card?
Is that Maxwell?
Stop.
Yes, it sure is.
Deck. We'll place Rich's card a little bit lower. That's good. And then Mike, place your card back. Like that. Now, Becky, I'm a magician. It's my job to find those cards. Do you want me to do it the easy way or the hard way?
The hard way.
Thanks for coming. All right. I'll do it the hard way. There's one. There's two. There's three. Now, let's see how lucky I was. Becky, what card did you choose?
Ace of diamonds.
Got it.
Holy mackerel.
Here, let's hold on to this for me, would you? And Rich, what card did you choose?
6 of diamonds, I think he had.
Got it. Remember that one? And Mike, you don't even have to say because you wrote your name on your card,
That's
right?
correct.
You did write your name on your card, didn't you?
Yes. That's not it.
I have to do it the easy way. Mike, what card did you choose? There's no cards with any names on them
Oh,
in
I
here.
believe it was the 8 of diamonds.
Oh, well, see, it can't have been the 8 of diamonds, Mike. See, because this was Rich's card, this was Becky's card, this was my card, and see, I'm the one that picked the 8 of diamonds.
Very good.
Good. It's good.
Here we are with this is one of those routines, right, that we were talking about, where Bannon was for years obsessed with the what we call the mystery
sign card. Yeah, like the Brother John Hammond trick, right? The signed card. It's that plot. A lot of people had different handlings on it and definitely worked it. He tried to find every way to do it and find the best way to really exploit what that effect is. Really, I think this is really smart and really cool.
It's really, that trick between your palms, the Elmsley trick, between your palms.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's more or less the same effect as the mystery card plot? tell everybody. Shall we bring in
The
Dean
thing that's missing is, yeah, bring in Jason. Yeah, totally.
as
Absolutely.
the host? You may. Okay, great. What were you going to say about the mystery
It
card?
definitely is closer to the between your palms. I think the signed card it's the mystery card plot, like you're saying. This thing is going to become important later, right? And I guess that sort of is in the between your palms too. So maybe it is Elmsley that is the originator of this. And having said that, it's probably older than that, right? But it's that mystery card, the signed card, between your palms card.
I think it's Elmsley's. I mean, I think the idea, everybody, of there's a card which is out and clearly drawn attention to. Then the audience picks a card and signs a card. Then stuff happens. And then this card, which has always been there, is revealed to be the signed card. So it's kind of an odd and paradoxical effect. Jason Dean.
Hey, Jason.
We have a surprise visitor.
Hello,
neighbor.
Welcome.
What a surprise. How are you?
Good to see your faces.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see your face, buddy. We're having a bit of a controversial question right now because it's not something.
He's the guy that could break the tie here. Where does this plot from? Whose notion is this? You're a guy that would know these.
Well,
things.
if there's a tie, all I'm saying is I've always had a bit of a issue with the plot in and of itself, and that
it feels Elmsley.
I think you're right. I think
you mean it feels like between the palms?
Yeah.
What is it that Brother John Hammond? What did Brother John Hammond do that was different than between your palms, other than putting the card on the table?
Well,
Elmsley had the dupe.
Elmsley had the dupe, right? And Hammond had these switches.
The switch, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And in another way, Elmsley had the cards between your hand, and so you would have 3 selections after this happens, and one of them was signed, and then you'd find the first selection and drop it in. You'd find the second and drop it in. The third selection, well, you'd remove the first and the second, and then the one that was already there was it. So it had and so I think Hammond was trying to make it more magical by keeping the card in plain view the whole time, and added the switch under the theory that it would appear that the card was not ever tampered with. And
so having said that, it seems like this is really a hybrid of the two, because it is between the fingers and it's on in view, right? So it's like those two things sort of mixed together.
It seems
chocolate and his peanut butter.
The entire rage, and I remember this was in the Jack Carpenter book, and Bannon was into it. The entire rage at that time was doing 2-phase routines where the first routine would involve 4 of a kind where you'd only see 3 of them. So some kind of Elmsley count ending or some kind of last trick of Jacob Daly. That's what a lot of the guys were doing. So you say, we got the mystery card here. You pick a card. Now here's a trick with the 4 queens. 1, 2, 3, 4 queens. Then you say, okay, here's a red queen. I'll place it there. Here's a red queen. I'll place it there. I rub those cards against the mystery card. They turn into the black queens. Red queens are over here. The mystery card is so powerful because it was here the whole time before we ever started. And what I'm saying, and this is unpopular, but I personally think that there's a lot of these methods that are really beautiful and more interesting than the last. I still think the effect confuses the heck out of lay people.
What about in this configuration that we watched here, where we saw Bannon sort of combining those two things together, where it was between the fingers, but on display? To me, it seemed clear in this effect.
It seems clear. The problem with the trick to me, and there's a personal issue, I'm not saying anyone's wrong, but I am saying that I have never found audiences to have an easy time with the paradoxical. Look, the problem is, it's like Joe Pesci said, right? It's a mystery, a paradox within a paradox. So on some level, magic is already a paradox. When you sign a card and the card disappears and it goes over to the wallet, we want to create the impression we made it go there. But still, to the audience, it feels like a paradox. And it's already a lot to take in. So we get really bored with card to impossible location. So we say we want to make the card go back in time because we're bored of just making something impossible happen. And
Are you
I
suggesting
just felt
that this might be a magician's trick? That this is magic for magicians?
I only came to feel that way after trying all the methods for people and being like, man, they don't get it. They don't think it's as great as I do. I think magicians do because they already know that a card can go to an impossible location. So it's like, ooh, this I can get. But for regular folks, that first piece of information has not gotten old. Dean, what do you think?
I've experienced some.
What I'm saying?
Yeah, pretty much. That's why I found myself back to just doing the Elmsley version, because those very specific cards become very important. It's a selection to someone. Uh, Same thing with Brother John Hammond. What's nice about the switch, there's clarity with the switch once you involve like the other two cards or sandwich cards or two kings or whatever. So when you switch it out, it has this layer to it. But I've always found myself back to the Elmsley one. I prefer the dupe than the switch. It just has a cleaner flow to it.
So you're saying that the paradox is easier to sell for you, the less shit is involved.
Yeah. Now with Bannon's is great. I'm with Alex. I think it's like a combination of both effects to create the outcome of where he went. That's what it
Can you
feels
guys
like.
tell me what the first effect was like in English?
What we saw John Bannon do?
Yeah, like the exercise of stating the effect.
He pulled out a card, pulled out a mystery card. He put that mystery card between her thumb and finger, right? Or fingers and whatever. She has a card at her fingertips. He takes out a card, puts it there. This is my prediction or a mystery card of something that'll come later. Then he has 3 selections made. 3 selections are each put are each put into the deck, lost. He produces the cards, and as he produces them, he puts them between her fingers to join the mystery card. And then when he gets to the last card, he misses. He's only put the first two selections between her fingers with his mystery card. The last card he misses, and then he says, well, I'll find it. It's looks through the deck, can't find the signed card. Well, Mike, what was picked? 8 of diamonds, spreads the cards. It can't be the 8 of diamonds. That's my mystery card. That's the one I put over there and shows that it's the signed card.
So he's doing a Hammond-esque approach to the Elmsley. He's trying to keep the Elmsley
I think that's it.
Yep, that's it.
And while injecting the Hammond tech.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The Hammond aesthetics. Right.
Yeah,
Jason, I have a question for you. When you do the Elmsley trick, because I've only ever tried it a few times, and it was when I was first into Magic, and it never stuck. It was just never one that I got into. And maybe it's because of what Aaron's saying. And I wonder, when you're in that moment, when you're presenting it, when it is that paradoxical moment, what is the reaction from the spectator? Is it confusion? Do they get silent? Like, what happens at that moment when that last card is between the palms?
I mean, you really have to like control them. I mean, it's the idea of like making that card important. I feel like it becomes just the handling of the moves once the mystery card is just kind of moved on. But if you really concentrate on that mystery card in the beginning, and then maybe come back to it.
Yeah, my lawyers say tough cases make bad laws. And I sort of feel like, no, it's sort of like the egg bag. It's like, is the egg bag a great trick? Well, it's not a very good trick, but it's a great trick. So the problem is, right, it's wonderful trick. It's like a K2 of mountains to magic tricks, right? So K2 isn't necessarily a great hike, right? It's going to kill you. And if you did it, of course you like it, right? So I guess what I'm suggesting is it's a really hard trick to communicate to an audience.
And you're saying that because he's invested in it, he's already on the mountain, he's gonna make it beautiful because it's his jam. That's what you're suggesting, right?
I'm suggesting that a masterful magician such as Jason Dean or Alex, if he chooses to spend a lot of time on it, can in fact probably communicate to the audience the intended effect. However, you got to decide where to spend all your time. And if you want to spend all of your formidable time and energy trying to communicate an effect that's that hard to communicate, you got to ask yourself if there are effects which maybe are a little clearer by design. And I think it's just a situation where we tend to get enamored. Look, I think all the methods are awesome. I've done them all. I love how each one's more interesting than the last. I just have found that whenever I went to perform, I had the exact impression that Alex had. It's exactly what Alex said. Well, I was so new at Magic, I can't be sure it wasn't me. And I had that feeling after I'd been doing Magic 15 years. So I started trying it again, and guess what I found out? Ah!
It wasn't for you. Well, it's like we say with all magic tricks, right? You got to love the thing. If you aren't in love with that premise, if you aren't in love with everything about it, you're probably not going to present that it feels like you love the trick when you're showing it to people. And I think,
I have to be honest.
if you love the thing, it's going to work.
I have to be honest. I think the Elmsley trick and these sort of effects are lovely, but I haven't done this in a very long time. It didn't stick in my rep, and I'm wondering why now.
That's what I'm
There
saying.
it is. We've
and
all
all
come to
I'm
the
saying
same
is
place.
I know both of these guys, and if you let them talk long enough, they're going to say, "Yeah, but it just didn't stick." And I'm going, "No, you're right. Didn't stick for me. Didn't stick for him. It didn't stick for him either." And I'm saying at a certain point, maybe it's not us. It's not John Bannon either. It's just here's the point: when you take your wallet and you put it out in front of the audience and you say, "This is my wallet." Now, we're not talking about putting a wallet in your pocket, having a card signed, jamming it in your wallet, pulling out, being like, "Look, here it is." We're talking about if you start with the wallet there, you might as well take that wallet and stick it between a person's palms. Now you're going to have a card selected and signed. Now you're going to go, "Look, this wallet has been between your palms since before we ever had a card picked." Open it up. Look at that. There's a card inside. I think what you're going to find is people grok that effect a little bit clearer than you trying to express to them the idea that this card, this it's a very meta trick. It's just a meta trick. You know what I mean?
And the method also relies on the fact that you have to have several spectators. So that adds a lot of smoke to the whole idea of what the effect is, right? Because the method needs it. You have to have several cards in play or else it doesn't work. So it's there's definitely some issues.
It's already a whole thing. I'm not trying to I just think we should be safe to have a conversation about this stuff because I think it's a wonderful, clever method, and I think all the stuff is
I've always loved the premise.
We had to perform. We all love the premise. I'm just saying that my attempts to have audiences love it equally have convinced me that perhaps it's a special favorite of us who love magic too much.
And both Jason and I hedged and said, "Yeah, we don't really do it anymore." So there it is.
And y'all never really did. Y'all tried it here and there, and we're like, "Yeah, why don't they?"
But look, it's one of those tricks that still floats in the back of the head, especially we're not just referencing the plot, we're referencing a particular person's approach to the plot that we keep coming back to.
And clearly John Bannon loved it, right? He used that. He was using Hammonds. He sort of tied them together is what we've sort of come to as a consensus through conversation here. We realized Bannon's sort of stepping with this, and how cool is that?
But we should be definitely aware by now that some magicians, certainly prolific ones like John Bannon, like to play with problems because they're good problems. They're fun. They're interesting. There's a lot of different fun ways to do it. So you explore them. So, I mean, I don't think there's any rule against that. I think we love that stuff. I don't like the idea. There's a certain idea in magic that if it's not for you to perform, it's not interesting. And that's an attitude that you can take. It's just not sort of, I just think you're going to have a very limited time as a magician if you're not interested in looking at and thinking about any magic that's not in your show.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So, like, for example, what's the next trick?
Yeah, let's get into this next one. This one is very interesting. This has to do with well, I'll just say time. It's a good one.
Becky, you know, in the magic hierarchy, right beneath Grand Wizard is Master of Time and Space.
Okay.
And I'll admit, that's as far as I've ever gotten. But the only reason why I bring this up is because this is a trick about time and a trick about objects in space. Now, we're in the Pacific time zone, right?
Right.
Okay, so you be in the Pacific time zone. Rich, the cameraman, I want you to pretend that you're in the Western European time zone, okay? And Mike, I want you to pretend that you're in the Central Asiatic time zone. Okay. 3 people in 3 different parts of the world. Now we need a time. I want you to think of your favorite hour of the day, or any hour between 1 and 12. Now if you're thinking of 1 o'clock, I want you to deal 1 card on the table. 2 o'clock, deal 2, 3 o'clock, deal 3. But do it slow enough so that Rich and Mike know what hour you're thinking of, because I want everyone to think of the same hour.
All right.
I'm going to look away. You let me know when you're done. Okay? And when you're done, just cover up the cards that you've dealt with your hands.
Okay.
All right. Now you're thinking of an hour, right?
Right.
And Rich, you know what hour that is, right? And Mike, you know what hour that is.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to have you remember a card at your hour. I'm going to show you 12 cards. I want you to remember the card at your hour. If you're thinking of 1 o'clock, you'd remember that card.
All right.
2 o'clock, you'd remember that one. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Becky, do you have a card? Mm-hmm. Remember that card. Okay, now, Rich, we need you to select a card as well. Remember the card at the hour. This would be 1 o'clock. Oh, excuse me, you're in the Western European time zone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Rich, do you have a card? Good. Now, Mike, we need you to select one. And you're in Central Asiatic, so this would be Ichi, Ni, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have a card too. Good. 3 people in 3 different parts of the world, each merely thinking of a card. I am the master of time and space.
Really?
It's my job to find those cards. So, Becky, I'm going to show you some cards. And I want you to tell me if you see your card among them. Now, don't tell me what it is. Just say yes or no.
No.
Rich, do you see your card? Mike, do you see yours?
No, I do not.
This could be harder than I thought. Let's try that again. Do you see your card? Don't tell me what it is. Just say
It's not there.
no. Rich? Mike?
No again.
Let's try that again. One more time. Becky, do you see your card? It has to be one of these, right?
It's not one of those.
No. Rich? Yours is one of these, right? No. Mike?
I don't see it.
I'm glad he's about to declare all the
I have
cards.
some cards left. Becky, one of these is yours, right?
What'd you do with my card? It's not there.
You're kidding. Rich, is yours there? Mike?
No.
That's weird. They're gone. Oh, I know what happened. See, I'm from Chicago, which is a different time zone, and this deck actually passed through on its way to California, and it lost an hour. In fact, I think the hour it lost was 6 o'clock. Did you think of 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Well, that's the problem. All we have to do is just turn the clock ahead a little bit. And Becky, what card are you thinking of?
4 diamonds.
And Rich, what card are you thinking of?
10 of clubs.
And Mike, what card are you thinking of?
The Jack of Spades.
The Jack of Spades.
Mike wasn't thinking of that.
And look, it worked. There's Becky's 4 diamonds, there's Rich's 10 of clubs, and there's Mike's Jack of Spades.
What could be a better illustration? of a fascinating problem and a fascinating solution, right? How great, how fascinating is that?
I think that's a really cool trick. It does play a little longer, but you know, it's like out of this world. That's a little bit longer too, you know. But I think the effect is pretty stellar. The thought of they're all thinking at the same time, their cards appear in the middle. As far as card tricks go, I like that one. I think that's pretty good. But it is long, you know. It's involved for sure.
I feel
Uh,
like it's one of those tricks that plays better when it's, you know, you're the spectator and it's happening to you. You're involved.
Agreed.
yes, I'm not. I feel like I'm not sitting here picking on the trick. I personally have always, every time I've come to a trick, I just remember buying books and the book says, you know, I just want you to think of a number. And I just want you to remember seven. Okay, I'm going to show you like 20 cards. I want you to remember like the card that falls at your number. The only things you have to do are remember your card and the number. Now, whenever, and the effect always goes, a thought of card is found in the most impossible situation. And then, so you just say to the person, think of a number and then the right card and make sure that you're paying attention. You remember the right card at the right time. Then later, I'm going to ask you that number again, but I'm never going to ask you the card. And I've always had a hard time selling that. And so there's no doubt about it. If you can get past that, and of course he can, and do that thrice, it is truly a phenomenal miracle he's got at the end. It's wonderful. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's wrong to say that a trick like that is clearly the byproduct of a desire to solve these problems in fascinating ways.
Do you feel this sort of selection process is something that comes with the clock trick? Because I have yet to see a real clear clock trick in the sense of the selection process.
Well, I think it's a lot like that trick overkill. And I used to do overkill all the time, right? In overkill, you're doing that. You're thinking of a number, and I'll think of a card at the number you're thinking of. And then it's, you know, revelation, revelation, revelation. It's written on the box. It's the one red one. It's this, it's that, right? And I've always felt like overkill plays really strong, but you have to be extremely clear when you're doing that. You're thinking of a number and now think of a card. Otherwise, the thing falls flat on its face, right? So there's only a, you know, as a performer, there's a learning curve to making that play. And I always thought the idea of it being an hour that they're thinking of, I always thought that was a pretty clever way, because it's a number that means something. Think of your favorite hour. Think of something that happened during a time of day. What hour of the day was that? Now lock that in your mind and think of that hour and only that hour. Like that seems cool to me, you know?
Mm-hmm. I don't think any of these points of view are right or wrong. I just think
Yeah, totally.
I think what's important is that there's too many tricks for any of us to do all of them.
That's right.
None of us are ever going to be able to use more than a very small, teeny subset of the tricks that we have ever seen.
And what you're saying is you would never pick this one.
No, what I'm suggesting is that it's very important for you to understand, whoever you are, what exactly what your parameters are. And if you pick some standards that mean something to you, and
You know,
and
John makes a good point. He says, I love that trick, and I'm always right. So good point, John.
that's right. So if you love that trick, you should do it. That's what I'm suggesting. And if I am not into the selection procedure, then I should do other tricks. I'm not hard. I'm just saying you should choose what you like. Look, I don't think there's a contradiction to say that's a really a great trick, and I thought it was really great, and I wouldn't perform it.
No, not at all. It's just funny watching Magic with you sometimes, because I could tell you hated it in the first 30 seconds.
Well, that's yeah, but again, hating it, like for me,
For
and
you.
hating it or
Yeah,
not.
yes, totally. Doesn't mean you
I'm
don't love
always,
the principles in play, and you don't love John, and you don't love, you know, the trick itself. It's just that for you know that it's not the right thing. I get it. I'm with
Yeah,
you.
I just know that when I see that, I go, well, that's going to be a tough one for me. But you know,
oh,
but maybe it's because
that's
I'm one of
so
the better,
cool.
cheaper acts.
I'm with you on this because I always thought it was strange. We'll have a whole close-up set, or you know, however many tricks you want to do, and the card selection process is very clean, very fair. And then you come to this trick. It's a great trick, but all of a sudden the process changes so much that I feel it affects what I've done previously or what I'm going to do after. Just by the selection process. I think the clock trick is clever. I think it's great. I love that the method is surrounded by a plot. But if you go all night doing these tricks where these selections are free or they look free, and then even though the clock trick, the selection, it's free.
Y'all have seen Jason do magic. He says stuff like, name a card or say stop. So because he's got a real clear way of working, which is real clean and direct in that way, for Jason to then say, all right, let's try a little something different. Just think of a number and I'm going to do this. And it feels to you like it'd be a little break from your procedure.
Yes. And that's for me. And that's going through the idea of who are you as a magician and what are you trying to sell. And that incorporates, what tricks am I doing? How does everything look with each other? And the clock trick, I have a favorite clock trick, and I've yet to perform it really a lot because it doesn't really vibe with what I'm already doing.
I think it sort of has the same, I mentioned it earlier. It's the same syndrome as Out of This World. I don't do Out of This World all the time, but the right place, right time, Out of This World, it's the right thing for that, for that place. I think the clock trick probably it's got to be in that same sort of family, right?
I'm with you.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I also just think that card magicians love plots. We love to play with plots. And I think the fun part about that, there's no point in that game if you can't say what you like about one solution versus another. And that's really all it is what does one like about that solution versus another solution. So to me, having a point of view about those things has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not that was an astonishing trick, and the ending was astonishing, and the fact that he found those 3 thought of cards was lovely, and by the time it happened, it's a great solution. You can't hold a man liable for the fact that it's a variation of the clock trick. That's what it is. I mean, it's a way of getting those cards found by that method. So, and there's also no
good news for you. I have good news for you. This one, much more direct. I think you're going to really like this one.
I feel like no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to dig myself out of this hole.
No, I'm just saying you're going to love this one because this is it. This is what you're looking for right here.
All right.
Becky, we already know you believe in ESP.
Right.
But did you know that people used to believe that if you looked into the eyes of a murder victim, you could see the face of the killer because that was the last thing that the person saw?
Okay.
Well, I think I have an application for that in magic. What I'd like you to do, Becky, is to cut off a packet of cards, about this many more or less.
All right.
That's good. Shuffle them up.
Ah.
Fan them out before your eyes. And I want you to think of any number card that you see. Got one?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Shuffle them up. Drop them on top. Now, Becky, the last thing you saw is the card that you're only thinking of. And I want you to concentrate on it. And I'm going to look into your eye, and I know what it is. It's a red card, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a diamond, is it not?
No.
That's what I said. It's not. You're thinking of the ace of hearts, right?
Yes. That can't be. How'd you do that?
I told you. It's the last thing that you saw.
There you go. There you go. Very simple procedure.
Is this called Outer Limits?
This is Outer Limits. Did you play with this one? I love this trick.
I've read it a lot.
Uh-huh.
I played with it, never performed it. I moved on.
There it is.
Jason, now that we've come clean about the fact that sometimes, what the problem is, there's very little room for nuance these days in communication. what was it that made it hard for you when you thought about actually performing it, when you were considering using it? Because you know what, a lot of these tricks are really wonderful if you want a session and do magic with your friends and share these great tricks that you're working on. That's wonderful. It's only that sometimes we get this overlay that comes from having done a lot of shows and becoming a little bit biased towards things that we feel would work for us. And that's normal. But what was it? What was the actual hang up? Because, you know, it's as far as impossible locations and revelations go, is real direct.
You know, first off, I love Bannon and his magic. I have all his books. I study a lot of his stuff. And I
feel
think
a
these
butt
are
coming.
really great approaches to some plots that I feel going into a challenge category for me when I think about it. And so it causes me to explore different ideas and approaches from people. And the one we just watched, Outer Limits, did that. I went and studied it, and because it inspired me, I continued to look for more approaches to the idea of the think of a card plot. And I landed at what I feel is a better solution for me in my performances. I feel like everyone should read the approach to this effect, because it really opened my eyes up in the sense of how do you approach just someone thinking of a card, right? And this is a great way that Bannon went after that, but I didn't stop there. I continued. It was a great lesson and a great read to hear how Bannon approached just the thought of think of a card plot.
This was my first exposure
So-
to this sort of a branching method that he's using here. I'm with you. I went beyond it, and like I think John Thompson's method is really the one. That's the best one that there is, and I wouldn't be surprised if John were to say that this was his way to sort of crack John Thompson's and make it a little bit more accessible to him. You know, but I think John's is the best method. But this is I think it's really good. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's branching methods, right? When they say no, you know what the card is in this one.
Right, but for some reason, I thought it was maybe a stack, but I didn't imagine that he would be having a pump deck. It's a pump deck. I'm sorry, YouTube.
In essence, it is. It's a very, very,
Yeah.
very easy version of what you're talking about. Yeah, and that it makes it accessible. And for me, it was like at the beginning of getting into Magic. This was like one of my early Magic books. And I'm like Jason, you know, studied it and worked with it. And I performed it a couple times, but realized that for me, I felt like it wants a little bit more, wants a little more smoke, you know, like this, it seemed, and I don't know if it's because my magic mind is looking at the method and I'm looking at it from the point of view of, I think it needs to be more complex, or if it's, you know, what it is, but I'm looking at it like it's good. It's a good first step. And, you know, like what Jason's saying, it's a good first step in that direction of what this effect does. But
that's funny you say it needs more. That's what I felt.
Yeah, it needs more.
That's exactly how I felt, because at the end of it, when you just look at them, you're like, 2 of diamonds. I didn't get the impact I was looking for. And I also feel like, you know, if you're going to be that bold where you're just like, think of a card and you tell it, I feel the method behind it has to be so clean, so fair, so the clarity has to be there for you. Think of a card and then tell them the name of it. To ultimately end where Bannon ends, I feel like I want another kind of thing to give it kind of a closure. And
it feels like that's an introduction.
You're saying it feels like a first phase, but
yeah,
because of the nature of the method, you've sort of topped out.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's a one shot.